Coming up on today's show, I want to talk all Amari Cooper, the holdout, the possible outcomes, what an extension could look like, everything in between and across the board for Amari Cooper. So, before we get any further, I do love to hear from our wonderful viewers. What's your concern level over Amari Cooper's holdout? Scale it 1 to 10 for me. We're filming this during our live show Tuesday afternoon. So, as things stand right now, I'd put myself at a 1. I just truly believe there is no way Amari Cooper is not on this team for 2024. But it is a 1 because we can't be at a 0 when he is holding out. So let's talk about some of the options and then the outcomes and kind of give the pros and cons for both sides of the argument here. Option number 1, the Browns give Amari Cooper a raise. The early reports are that Amari Cooper is looking for a contract extension. Maybe he settles for a raise if the Browns are not interested in extending a 30-year-old wide receiver. We have seen a couple of notable guys get raises just for being really good at their jobs. Christian McCaffrey, before he got that 2-year, $39 million, $38 million extension, the 49ers just gave him an extra $8 million because he's Christian McCaffrey. The Raiders gave Max Crosby a $6 million raise for what he was originally scheduled to do. No other change to his contract, no years added or anything like that, just a raise. So maybe Amari Cooper goes, all right, well, if I can't get an extension, I'll take a raise. The Browns can afford it. They've got $13.7 million in cap space. They can also open up an extra $35-ish million in cap space if they restructure Deshaun Watson's contract, which that's a whole separate can of worms, and I'm not trying to open that up entirely, but I'll leave you with this. A restructure is not Deshaun Watson taking less money or anything like that. It is simply taking a player's base salary and prorating it over signing bonuses for the remaining years they are under contract. There are pros and cons to restructures, but the Browns could restructure Deshaun Watson's contract and open up extra cap space that way if they are truly worried about having enough money for 2024. That's option number 1. Option number 2 is you could extend Amari Cooper. This is a little bit more of a complex option, right? There's much greater pros and cons to extending Amari Cooper. Now, I cooked up a contract extension idea, and it's a 3-year, $63 million extension. That's an average of $21 million a season, so a slight increase from what he's currently making, which is $20 million a season. Guarantee $40 million. So really, it's a 2-year, $40 million contract, which is the same as what he's making right now, $20 million. And look at the highest paid wide receivers in football. Amari Cooper, not even really close to the top 10. Is Amari Cooper a top 10 wide receiver? Maybe, maybe not, but he's currently the 20th highest paid wide receiver. So the Browns are getting him for an absolute bargain at the moment. I'm willing to bet on Amari Cooper, though, because if you make this extension, you are at least investing in him for 2025 and 2026. He's under contract for 2024. So you are betting to the tune of $40 million, give or take, that you can get 3 more good seasons from Amari Cooper. And for a guy that's about to turn 30 years old, that's a gamble. I know Amari Cooper the last 2 years has looked bulletproof, and he doesn't look like a guy that's going to slow down at all, and I'm in agreement with you, but we know it's the NFL and things change. I mean, Amari Cooper the last 2 years with the Browns compared to his final 2 seasons in Dallas, I mean, he's almost getting better as he gets older. I mean, 10 fewer receptions, but despite that, 2,400 yards, 14 touchdowns. Sometimes as wide receivers get up in the age column, the average goes down because they don't have that big explosive play anymore, and they're just pretty much there to move the sticks. But that's not the case with Amari Cooper at all. Now, if we go back in time, Andrew Berry at the NFL owners meeting talked about Amari Cooper and said, look, Coop's a Pro Bowl caliber receiver. He's played really well for us the past 2 years. He's a strong presence in the locker room. We love him. So players like that, you want to make sure that you can retain as long as possible. And we'll work through all that at appropriate times. Actions speak louder than words. Andrew Berry may have said the Browns want to keep Amari Cooper as long as possible, but the reality is until they extend him, that may just kind of be chatter and not actually what they mean deep down. Now, I remember reading this article from ESPN's Bill Barnwell about the future of the wide receiver position after Justin Jefferson's record extension, which made him the highest paid player, non quarterback. And I thought a couple of snippets of it would be really interesting to you guys. Barnwell wrote, over the past 5 years, by the Jimmy Johnson value chart, teams have used 15.3% of their available draft capital on wide receivers. That's the most for any 5-year span since the league moved to the 7-round draft format in 1994. They've used more than 17% of their draft capital on wideouts 4 times over that 31-year span, and 2 of those occasions have come in the past 4 years, 2022 and 2024. Now, what does this mean in English? 2 things to me. One, teams use wide receivers more, right? Unfortunately, the fullback has been replaced with a third wide receiver for most offensive sets. So as teams use wide receivers more, it's much more advantageous for teams to have a much deeper wide receiver room and to have more good players at that position. That's one part of it. The second part is there's a rise of college wide receivers. Look at how much A.J. Brown, Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, all those top wide receivers are making, and look at how much the best running backs are making. If you're a young athlete coming out of high school going into college, which position is going to make you more money? Wide receiver, and it's not even close. Everyone wants to play wide receiver. That's why you're seeing so many wide receivers come out every single year in the draft so high up. Every single draft class, it feels like it tops the previous year's draft class. And it doesn't seem fathomable in the moment, but then we get Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison Jr., Roma Dunze. All 3 of those guys could have been the first wide receiver taken if they were in separate draft classes. That's how talented the wide receiver pool is. So teams are drafting more wide receivers, which means teams aren't interested in paying older wide receivers because they can just go to the draft and go get Puka Nacua. Day 3 pick. He was top 5 in receiving yards last year. Now, there's no guarantee that you're going to always find a Puka Nacua, but we are seeing that the wide receiver talent pool is getting better by the year. So, unfortunately for aging receivers like Amari Cooper, the Browns could just forego giving him a 3-year, $60 million extension and instead draft a guy round 1, hopefully pick 32, and pay him 4 years, $25 million. And that's a lot more bang for your buck. Now, there's also no sure thing in the NFL. Well, I am in favor of extending Amari Cooper because I do think he has earned it, and I do think he will live up to the extension. I do think we have to take our head out of the sand for a moment and realize that sometimes these heroes of ours don't last forever. Take Julio Jones, for example. He was on top of the wide receiver world. He got a contract extension in 2019. And the 55 games he played before receiving that extension, he had 5,600 yards and 20 touchdowns. The following 55 games, 2,900 yards and 15 touchdowns. So quite the dip after signing the extension. How about our old friend Odell Beckham Jr.? The 47 games leading up to his contract extension, 4,400 yards, 48 touchdowns. The next 47 games, down to 2,800 yards and 17 touchdowns. In the moment, it always sounds good. But there are some good historical examples of sometimes players do not live up to the extension that we think they will. However, I am still confident in Amari Cooper because I don't think it's right to compare Cooper to those 2 players in those examples. For starters, Julio Jones battled chronic soft tissue injuries. Amari Cooper has been an Iron Man his entire NFL career. Yes, he did miss a little bit of time at the end of last season, but that was just a precautionary measure after the Browns clinched a playoff spot against the Jets. In fact, since Amari Cooper entered the league in 2015, he is second in games played by all wide receivers with 140, only trailing Tyler Lockett, ahead of Mike Evans, Brandon Cooks, Stephon Diggs. So Julio Jones started to crumble because his body was crumbling. Amari Cooper has always been available. And then as for OBJ, I think we can all agree that OBJ and Amari Cooper mentally are in very different headspaces. And I think Amari Cooper isn't on a path to go off a cliff a little bit, sort of like what OBJ was on when he was, going Kung Fu Panda on kicking nets on the sidelines. So would you extend Amari Cooper? At the end of the video, what are your thoughts? Give me a yes, give me a no. I'm on board with extending Amari Cooper. I don't think he is about to fall off a cliff. I still think he can be a really productive player. And yes, you would be investing in an aging asset, but I still think he can produce at a very high level. And that frees up your first-round draft pick next year to use it elsewhere. Say left tackle, which I think is a pretty important position, and you could use one after this year. We're going to bring on producer Trace to pick a card. Trace, which card do you want to go with?
I'm liking the 7 of hearts.
Okay. I thought you were going to say a different card to troll me. I got the card correct on an unofficial video, and that's been haunting me ever since. I'm going to go with the King of Clubs. Go upstairs one. You like it? We also got the new guy, Joey Peterson, here today. Joey, which card do you want to go with?
2 of diamonds.
2 of diamonds. I like the conviction. It just sounds like a highly educated guy
really?
right there.
Oh, my God.
You know, in some cultures, that's the highest card.
In some cultures.
In some cultures.
Not in this culture.
Some games. I'm going to go as a King of Clubs. Would you say? Nah, idiot. 9 of diamonds. 9 of diamonds. All right. That will do it for us on today's show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Shout out to Christopher Stofira for getting the card correct. We'll sign off, and we'll see you all later.